These 4 things I'm going to teach you in this video is going to allow you to thrive in high-stakes situations and allow you to get more done in 90 days than what you normally do in a year. My name is Christian Santiago. I'm a peak performance coach for visionary leaders and entrepreneurs, and I'm excited to show you what I call the peak 4 that I take every single one of my clients through in order for them to operate at their best mentally, emotionally, and physically at all times, and allow them to get more done regardless if they're working 80 to 100 hours a week, putting out fires. Enjoy the video. So out of the 1,114 coach sessions I've done the past 3 years with 7 and 8 figure clients, I really was like, hey, I need to figure out a system that I personally use that's allowed me to really operate at my best, write 3 books in 4 years, but also work in other industries, no matter if my client is doing 50 hours a week and they're a real estate investor, or they're doing 90 to 100 hours a week and they're a trauma surgeon in high stakes situations, or an investment banker. And so that forced me to say what works no matter what. What can people do regardless of what industry they're in that's going to let them get more results at a high level and not break down mentally, emotionally, or physically, not have burnouts or breakdowns in the process. And I ended up coming up with these 4. And these 4, the peak 4, I'm going to give to you. And I'm also going to link some of them into this video on the bottom on the description for you to follow it yourself. But the first thing I give you in peak 4 is in the beginning of your day, you want to do some kind of priming exercise. Okay? Priming exercise. What's priming? You see, there's a different mindset that I've seen with high-level leaders is some people, just on regular achievers, they're waiting to be activated. What do I mean by that? They're waiting for something to change on the external world. Versus high-level leaders, they have a conditioning mindset, not an activating mindset. That means they're not waiting for something to activate them. They are conditioning themselves every single day, mentally, emotionally, physically, and even sometimes spiritually, for success that day. And so I encourage you to do some kind of priming exercise. Now, why do I call it priming? Because Tony Robbins, he actually has a priming video that's 16 minutes. And literally, I send this video to my clients for them to do every morning for 16 minutes before they go into their day, before they even get started. Why? Because it flushes out your nervous system with all your negative emotions, and it fills you up with all positive emotions, and it allows you to then get ready to allow you to get more success, to be able to take ground, to grow what you're growing, to accomplish the legendary things you really want to extract all your greatness. It's much easier to do that when your mind, your heart, your emotions, your body is also filled with so much powerful emotions that allow you to really operate at your highest. Okay, so I call it priming, and there's an actual link into the show notes. Some people, they either prime themselves by running, and while they're running, they're speaking over what they're going to accomplish that day. Or they might do some cold plunge, and that primes them, and then they're able to go into a gratitude journal or something. But either way, my priming that I tell people, I literally said in my Tony Robbins video, it's 15 minutes. If you don't have 15 minutes to prime yourself before your day, you don't have a life. Okay? And I tell you, my clients who did 96 hours. Okay, you are priming every day. I don't care what you're doing. And all of a sudden, they've literally told me, Christian, I'm thriving. Thank you for this priming. Okay? So let's say you start your day off of priming. This is in the AM. Okay? Next thing I want you to do is to apply this formula. It's called 30-31, 60-61, 90-91. And this is a productivity formula. Okay, and each number represents the same thing. This is the same tool I used, same formula I used to write 3 books in 4 years. Okay, so each number represents the same. The first 30, the first 60, the first 90 represents the same. The second 30, second 60, second 90 represents the same. The last one, the last one represents the same. Okay, so the first number is the next number of days. Okay, the second number is my first minutes of workday. The third number is the number 1 most important thing. Okay, so it'll read like this. For the next 30 days, I'm going to spend my first 30 minutes on the number one most important thing. For the next 60 days, I'm going to spend my first 60 minutes on the number one most important thing. For the next 90 days, I'm going to spend my first 90 minutes on the number one most important thing. As a visionary, the reason why you need to follow this formula when you first get into your day is because guess what? Because you are a leader, because you're a visionary, you're going to be pulled into fires all the time that some people will not be able to put out. And they're always going to look to you. And sometimes we are our own bottlenecks to a point that we're actually holding our own organization back because we're not going after the things that matter the most. But how can you still take out all the fires and still make progress every day? Simple. Devoting your first few minutes to the most important thing. Especially because it's going to allow you to activate flow. Flow is a sensation that flow follows focus, okay? Flow follows focus. What does that mean? That if you want to get into a flow state, which gives you about 300 to 400% more productivity, you have to get into a flow state, which means you have to be in a place of absolute focus. And if every day you show up for the next 60 days and you spend your first 60 minutes on the number one most important thing, what's going to happen? You're going to get way more progress than you ever thought possible. So literally what I did, I would spend 90 straight minutes, okay, for the next 90 days writing my book. And in the midst of me growing my business, in the midst of me working with high-level leaders, in the midst of me creating new content all the time, guess what? I was spending 90 straight minutes on my book. And I felt like I got something achieved every single time. This is what I did with trauma surgeons, where literally for the first 60 minutes that I had them for literally 60 days straight. First 60 minutes, you're going to go in. I want you to think of the one thing that matters the most, which for them, they needed to figure out solutions for certain procedures or certain diseases or certain things. And so they spent 60 straight minutes for 60 days thinking of that one thing. And they came up with some breakthrough ideas, okay? Same thing what I did with one of my other clients who literally looked for land. He spent 60 minutes of his first minutes. He's a real estate investor who's also a land developer. He found land out of state, which expanded his empire, which in like literally 2 months, 3 months, he was able to get $250,000 extra, okay, just because of the level of focus, okay? So if you prime in your morning and you really drill down in your day and you focus on the first 60 minutes on the number one most important thing, then we have to keep our energy up. So that means no carbs for lunch. I know you hate me now. That's fine. Okay. The reason why no carbs for lunch is because at the end of the day, usually after lunch, your energy goes like this. And where energy drops, your productivity drops too. Like, how productive are you if you really are yawning all the time? How much can you really focus if you have low energy? So if you cut out carbs, you're protecting. I don't care if you eat carbs for breakfast. I don't care if you eat carbs for dinner. But if you cut it out for lunch, you can still have energy that's at least at a 7 out of 10. It might not be at a 10 out of 10, but you can get more done at a 7 out of 10 than having your energy drop to a 2 or a 3 out of 10 after lunch. Okay? So if you cut out carbs for lunch, you can eat carbs for dinner, carbs for breakfast, I don't care. If you cut out carbs for lunch, it literally protects your energy. So that way you're like this. So your productivity on the back end of your day can actually pick up as well rather than dropping off like a cliff. Okay? And then the last one is use lion's mane 5 minutes before sleep. Okay? Lion's mane, there's a dropper, and I'll put a link to the show notes as well, to the video notes. Lion's mane, I take a dropper, I take 2 milliliters under my tongue before I go to sleep. And what does that do? It enhances REM sleep because there are components inside of lion's mane that are base block for either focus or base block for REM if you're going to go to sleep. And the past 3 nights, past 4 nights actually, I have had at least 50% restorative sleep. That means it was at least 25% on REM, 25% on deep sleep. So that's my normal because of lion's mane. That oftentimes when you go to sleep, and even if you sleep 6 hours, it feels like you slept 7 or you've slept 7.5 hours. And you'll have some vivid dreams, but if you take it 5 minutes before sleep, especially it has to be the specific one by Life Cycle because they're alcohol distilled. It's one of the only on the market. When you use that, you're able to maximize your sleep as well, especially if you're doing a lot of hours, especially if you're growing, especially if you're pushing hard. And so when you operate by these peak 4, You prime in the morning. You get yourself mentally, emotionally, and physically ready to take on the day. You apply the 60-60-1 where you spent your first hour on the number one most important thing in flow. And you get in flow and focus. You eat no carbs for lunch so your energy stays constant throughout the day. And you do lion's mane 5 minutes before bed so you can master your sleep. Then you're going to be operating at your best no matter what happens. And so if you enjoyed this video, subscribe, send this to some people. And then if you want to work with me or one of my peak performance coaches to really take everything you're doing to the next level, or your company or your team or any of that, totally let us know. You can click on the links as well. All right. It's Christian Santiago, peak performance coach, and I'll see you in the next video. Operate at your best because there's way more inside of you than you can even imagine.